last week, the Supreme Court announced it would be taking up TikTok's appeal as the social media platform looks to avoid a ban. Joining me now with more is Anthony Rapa, partner and co-chair for the International Trade Practice Group, Blank Rome. Anthony, thank you so much for joining. And what does this mean that the Supreme Court has agreed to hear the TikTok case in January?
Well, good morning, and thank you for having me on. So basically, the Supreme Court taking up this case really opens up some very interesting possibilities regarding the future of TikTok, which frankly may not have very long to last, depending on how things go. So as a very brief recap, in April, the president signed a law that essentially gave the president the authority to target foreign adversary-controlled applications. But the law went one step further. It called out TikTok by name as a foreign adversary-controlled application, and it gave TikTok 270 days to undergo a qualified divestiture to a company other than ByteDance or to investors other than Chinese-controlled investors. As it happens, 270 days lands on January 19th, the last day of the president's term. And this was challenged in the D.C. Court of Appeals and failed. But just last week, the Supreme Court stated that it would take the case. So, briefing is scheduled for that on January 10th.
Yes.
TikTok has asked the court to issue an injunction that would prolong that ban from going into effect, but it remains to be seen if the court will do that.
Interesting. So, Anthony, in terms of how this could play out, what are the chances you think that TikTok can successfully be divested and no ban is in place?
Well, there are some very significant challenges associated with that. Number one, and I think in many cases, a lot of people, especially in the law, should try to stay out of the prediction business. But it's going to be difficult to win this case at the Supreme Court, it seems, although the case does raise very important questions. But they're going to have an uphill battle at the court, first of all. And it really seems as if ByteDance is dead set against there being any kind of a divestiture. Now, number one, they've placed an astronomical valuation on the company. The last I saw, around $300 billion. The secret sauce that goes into that valuation is the algorithm, which is considered by the Chinese government to be a crown jewel. And even under Chinese law, it might require a Chinese governmental approval to allow that to happen, which for different reasons could be considered to be unlikely. So there are different scenarios, especially with an incoming administration that could have a different view as compared to this administration, but certainly a lot of challenges in front of the company as of this time.
What are the key issues or challenges here, Anthony, that you referenced earlier in this case?
So the main issue before the court is that this is a First Amendment issue. And in fact, there were various other issues raised in the lower court. The Supreme Court is only taking this case on First Amendment grounds. That's the only thing that the parties are being asked to brief. But there are a lot of moving parts here. So the ban is scheduled to come into effect on January 19th. The court is taking oral argument on January 10th. TikTok has asked that ban to basically be stayed while the court is evaluating the case. Nobody knows if they're going to do that. Recently, a couple of senators asked President Biden to issue an extension on this ban, but then there have been other senators, also on a bipartisan basis, that have asked the president to let the ban go into effect. And then President-elect Trump has had different things to say on TikTok. His ability to impact events and to prolong the ban is really not at all clear. He could, not to speculate too much, but he could choose not to enforce the ban or he could choose not to hold companies accountable if they issue services to update or to maintain TikTok or provide hosting services for TikTok. But it's not clear that the app stores are going to want to go along with that or that they're going to take comfort in being told that the law would not be enforced against them. So there are different things the president-elect could try. Not clear if the Supreme Court is going to stay the effective date of the ban. We may not know until June, depending on how this all unfolds.
Anthony Rapa, thank you so much for joining. I think a lot of our viewers wondering what is in store for the future of TikTok. Anthony's a partner and co-chair for the International Trade Practice Group at Blank Rome.